Hello and welcome to episode 34 of the Teacher's Tea Time podcast. My name is Mark and I hope you're doing well. This podcast is about, by and for anyone who has ever had anything to do with schools and education. We're a proud member of Edjacent, a design collaborative that connects educators to their legacy. Learn more at edjacent.org. I have a mug of tea ready, so let's sit back, relax and get on with the show. In today's episode, we begin a conversation with retired principal and Edjacent designer, Cheryl Zigrang. Cheryl has had a long and illustrious career in education, and when I met her, I wanted to know more about her story. So, I have with me Cheryl Zigrang, who is an Edjacent designer, and we're really pleased to have her here to share her story as an educator. But Cheryl's had a long and illustrious career, and you are recently retired, I understand.
Yes, that's true.
As
of July.
Oh, wow, that's really good. So rather than tell us sort of your whole story, let's cut down to two key things. And I want to know your why. So we'll start with, why did you just decide to become an educator?
Well, unlike some people who perhaps always knew they wanted to be a teacher, I didn't know that, but what I did know is that I love children. I always, every job I ever had growing up, whether it was babysitting or day camp or sports camps, whatever that was, I always enjoyed working with children. I felt like I could bond with them and help them see and know how valued they were as people and help them grow. So when it came time to go to college, that's really when I decided that that would be the job for me, that I would be able to take my love for learning, and I loved school, and help other children grow as they, went through the school process.
That's interesting, because I was similar. I didn't really think I was going to be a teacher when I started my college career. It's something that I fell into. 27 years later, here I am still. So now, what kind of schools did you start off with? Did you intend to be an elementary educator or a high school educator? What kind of happened as you got into the early years of your career?
I definitely knew I wanted to be an elementary school teacher when I went to college. So that's what I got my degree in. And I was lucky enough to get a job as a first grade teacher. And I taught at the same school for 9 years. And I will tell you, though, when I student taught in 2nd and 6th grade. And even though I wasn't sure the older students would, that I would be able to do as well with them, I did thoroughly enjoy that age group as well. So I think that just in general, working with people is something I enjoy. And I was lucky enough to get first grade and had a lot of 5 and 6-year-olds that were ready to learn and be encouraged and just soak everything in. And I could really work on developing that love for learning with them.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about your career as administrator a little bit later, but I'm really interested in how you think, say, the job of an elementary teacher has changed since you started.
Well, I think in many ways it's the same, but certainly there's some key differences. When I started, the focus was almost 100% on academics, getting the children to have a good foundation, make sure they had all those foundational skills. However, as a teacher and a person, you knew that the children needed much more than that they needed your love, they needed your support, they needed to grow emotionally and socially. So you knew that you needed to do those things, but those were not part of the curriculum. And so now teachers are tasked with so many more things, not only in the curriculum, but with testing and then social emotional learning. And there's so many things, and it's not that they're not the right thing to do, because many of them are the right thing to be doing. But the feeling of pressure and stress for educators is, the demand is just so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it was always a complex job before. And I think, even in the last 15 years, it's even more complex now, and part of that's because we know so much more about what we should be doing and how to do it well, but making that happen isn't always necessarily the easiest thing. So you also have been a very successful administrator and a principal. What made you decide to go into that area of education and not something else as your career progressed?
Well, again, just by almost happenstance, as I told you, first grade teaching just really brought me a lot of joy. And I had finished my master's in elementary education. And as I also told you, learning is one of my passions. And so I went and I worked on my doctorate. And when I finished, my principal came down the hall one day and said, "So what are you going to do now that you've gotten your doctorate?" And I said, "Teach, hopefully be a better teacher and take what I learned and put that into action." And he said, "No, no, you need to go into administration. And there's an assistant principal job that's been listed. I want you to apply for that." So I did. And then started on my road to administration. I wasn't sure how I would feel about it because I knew I would really miss the children. But I have to say, immediately, I just fell in love with the breadth and depth of the job, as far as I could still work with children and hopefully make an impact in their lives, while I got to see the big picture of education and all the things that it took to make a school successful, teachers, support staff. So I immediately just said, this really is for me. I can make a difference on a bigger scale and help the teachers and the support staff know that they are so valued, and I will support them in whatever way possible so that they can make a difference in the lives of children. So it was a little bit by happenstance, but it was, he knew.
Probably knew better than you did actually at the time, to be honest.
Yes.
So what are the qualities you brought to the job? I mean, because you've been doing it, you've had a really good career out of it. So what made you successful?
Well, I think first, I don't know if it's from playing sports my whole life or just personality in general, but I think I know what it takes to make a good team and what you need to bring to the table to work together. And so I think I have a strength in being able to know the right people for the right places. And so I always try to tell people that number one, you have to hire well. So, and then you have to treat people well, and you need to let them know how valued they are and what an important piece they are to the team and the big picture of, again, making an impact in the students, and not just the students, but the families' lives and other staff members' lives. It's just one of those things that I think some people don't always see, that they're part of a bigger picture. So I think that, and then I think taking that interest in learning and helping people see that they have strengths and they have passions, but not just knowing it, but doing it. So taking what we can uncover that they're really good at or passionate about, and okay, so now that we know that, let's do that. And, let's make it work for you, and whatever's going to work for you is going to be what works for others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose with early career teachers who are very, very, we say very young. I mean, we're old now, so we can say that about early career teachers. Yeah. I didn't think so when I was in my 20s. I thought, oh yeah, I've made it. It takes a fair amount of skill in a leader to really sort of work out how best to move those individuals along in their career. So when you take someone in new, if you hire someone, what are you actually looking for? Because I teach pre-service teachers. They always ask, what are people looking for? So what do I have to say? Or how do I have to, what dispositions do I need? And what do you look for when you look for new teachers?
Well, number one, they're passion for helping students.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing. If I don't get that sense, then they're not going to be the right person for, being on a team where I'm a part of, for sure. I definitely think that that's number one. And then I think they need to be passionate about growing and learning and never feeling like they get there. But I also think they need to be able to laugh at themselves and know that it is a job, and teaching is more than a job. It is something that you have to feel deeply about and strongly about so that you can best help the children. And I think that they also need to not be afraid to make mistakes. They need to know that failure is part of the job. We don't know the answer to everything, and that's okay. We're going to try new things, and we're going to, again, use what you have and what you know, and hopefully improve upon those things. And as long as you're willing to do all that, you're going to be just fine. You got to have a good, positive attitude as well.
Absolutely. I think it's really key that you said it's good to make mistakes, because that's how you grow and learn. So I know when the pre-service teachers I work with, that's the one thing they're scared of, is getting into trouble. And then I know lots of teachers who are in service whose worry is, I'm going to get into trouble if I do something wrong. So how do you build the climate or the culture that allows for that to happen?
You have to do what you say you're going to do. And if you say it's okay to make mistakes, you have to make it okay to make mistakes. And I think that takes time for that to build. But when people see that you really mean what you say, then they believe it. One of the very first things I tell new teachers is, I will be more worried if you don't ask for help. If you don't ask questions and you don't ask for help, I will be more concerned about you, because we all know what it's like to be a first-year teacher, and it's hard.
Oh, yeah.
And you need support and you need help. And so I want you to do that. I want you to go. It doesn't have to be to me, but whether it's a coach, a colleague, or, go to the person you think is going to be able to help you, your mentor teacher, whoever that is, and ask all the questions you can. And if you need support and help or coaching, whatever that is, please don't hesitate to ask. But I think going back to what I said first is, the culture has to be created that's okay. Not only with me, but with all the administration and all the other teachers as well. We all have to buy into that.
Yeah, and I think that might be one of the problems of being a teacher right now, particularly as we're still in the middle of a pandemic. And here I was 6 months ago, thinking we were navigating out of it. But we have colleagues, and we know colleagues who are contemplating leaving the profession because they're very good at what they do, but they're feeling under pressure to perform in circumstances that are really difficult. So what can we do as some people listen to this are administrators, some of us are here as adjacent designers and coaches and people who are supporting educators. What can we do to reassure them or help our teacher friends right now where they're having a crisis of confidence because of all the circumstances that we're under right now?
And I think it probably has happened a lot in the last year and a half. I think the first thing is we need to ask questions. What do they need? How can we help them get what they need to do the best that they can right now? And a lot of times just talking about what the issues could be helps uncover what they need. And then you can go from there. Sometimes they're not really sure. It's just so overwhelming that they might think it's one thing, but that really isn't what it is. It could be something far deeper than that. So really asking the right questions and then really listening to what they have to say. And then after you listen, you're not going to be judgmental. You're going to be, say, okay, so now what? What can we do now? And then on top of that, letting them know how valued they are and how appreciated they are. But more importantly than words, we all need to be willing to take the action to support and help.
I'm really lucky that I can tap into Cheryl's wisdom, especially as she's working with me in the Edjacent Collaborative. If you'd like to get in touch with her, you can email her directly at cheryl@edjacent.org. I'll have that email address in the show notes too. Next time we'll hear more from Cheryl about how we might be able to support teachers through these really tough times. But until then, that was episode 34 of the Teachers Tea Time podcast. This podcast is a proud member of Edjacent, a design collaborative that connects teachers to their legacy. If you're looking for community, coaching, or content based around your needs, point your browser to www.edjacent.org and become a member for less than the cost of a peppermint mocha a week. So go ahead and navigate to www.edjacent.org and choose Become a Member. For me, it's the stories of teachers, students, and school communities that matter. As such, this podcast is only possible with the help and support of its listeners. Please leave positive reviews wherever you're able. If you're an iTunes or Spotify subscriber, leaving a good review can really help our visibility. Also, please don't keep this podcast to yourself. Tell your friends to subscribe and listen too. One thing we all have in common is that we've been to school. Everyone has an educational story to share. So if you would like to contribute to the pod in any way, if you have a story to share, whether it's long, short, tragic, or comic, if you have comments to make about the podcast or just want to say hi, you can send an email to teachersteatimepod@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can send emails to me directly using mark@edjacent.org. I love to read what you have to say. If social media is your thing, you can follow me on Twitter @markdearcop. You can find our contact information, copies of show notes, and you can download previous episodes of the podcast at www.teachersteatimepod.com. The podcast artwork was created by Phaedra. Opening and closing music is by Bryan Boyko. It's been my pleasure to host you today. Thank you for listening.